history with Action Man goes back to when I was 5 and I got my first Action Man for Christmas 1970. For a few fleeting years, it was my go-to toy, one that got me inspired to dream of feats of daring and accompanied me everywhere. When I was with Action Man, he and I thought as one, as a team. Any imaginary mission I dreamt up for him, he was equal to. And we were not alone. It seemed that almost every boy of the late 60s and 1970s at some stage was playing with and creating adventures for his own Action Man. And those Action Men took on their friends' Action Men. Such was his popularity that the range grew and grew to include the space capsule, tanks, jeeps, helicopters, motorbikes, and almost every accessory imaginable. If we couldn't afford big ticket accessories, then we made them in Dad's shed with the help of wood, cardboard and glue. We dug trenches, we made camps, and we made Action Man work hard for our adventures. This truly was a golden age for the imagination. He never deserted, aged, or stopped being on call. He remains at full action stations, returning to duty long after the childhood ended for many under his spell. He is set to do so for generations to come.
Action Man needed for special mission.
Chris Hillcox, an experienced near-space photographer, literally emailed me out of the blue. Chris wanted to get an Action Man into space for his 50th birthday year and asked if I knew anyone that could perhaps help contribute to this process. I took no convincing, it simply had to be done. And what a challenging adventure he would now take us on. Kickstarter was selected to crowdfund the mission. I was well aware of the funding platform because I happened to be a backer myself, part funding a Thunderbirds film project that continued on its way to a successful conclusion. I knew our mission would need careful propagation if it were to be a success. As a way of rewarding backers, special commemorative pieces would have to be designed to stimulate interest and engagement in the project. That much was obvious. I would need to launch a Facebook page to create awareness of the whole project, along with tease trailers and advertorial images to get backers squarely behind us to allow us to make their magic happen. Chris set about working out the equations needed to achieve a near-space launch and flight and recovery. He calculated flight costs and projections, coming up with numbers. I set about the publicity side and backers' rewards. Historically, this 1/6 scale mission picked up the baton from America's last Mercury Atlas 9 mission of 1963. We branded the newest mission Mercury 10.
Hello. When it's someone's birthday, we get to send them something special, and this is no exception. This is Action Man's 50th birthday year, and we want to send him something rather special. We want to send him into space.
A Kickstarter appeal film publicised the adventure ahead of being made live on Kickstarter. It tried to capture the imagination and set the tone of this very eccentric British attempt. From diligent research, I was aware that only 1/3 of these types of campaigns ever reached their target, so complete professionalism was required if we were to even dent the surface and go live. I often dwelt on the thought that we might just be bonkers. Or did we really have something? Could we keep backers engaged and suitably rewarded? Only time would tell. The Kickstarter campaign really was a journey into the unknown, and there was a little apprehension as to whether we could capture enthusiasts' imaginations enough to also gain their financial trust in that we could deliver. It seems we needn't have worried, as the project achieved all of its goals in just 10 days, ending at an impressive 169% funding. Art and Science International joined as the proud mission sponsor ahead of launching their exciting new range of Action Men in the UK, seizing upon the opportunity to pair with a project that would put Action Man firmly back into the public's hearts and minds. Now the project could go ahead, and thanks to the success in funding, with less pressure to compromise on the high quality of rewards. Action Man's original metal dog tag and ball chain embodies the brand, and a commemorative edition seemed an obvious inclusion to reward every backer. Finding a high-grade supplier was to prove possibly one of the hardest in the process of the whole mission. It needed to be quality and of British manufacture. Designs were drawn up, artworked and visualised. Great care was taken to match or exceed Action Man's original 1960s metal tag and chain, only this time in gold to mark his golden jubilee. A thin stamped alloy was used during the 1960s, but brass was selected for its longevity and golden lustre. When the mission had overfunded itself, we decided to create a laminated card certificate and specified a thicker grade of metal for the tag. 100 would travel to near space and back. Mercury 10 patches were very much inspired by the Mercury and Apollo woven patches of the 60s and 70s. As a boy who grew up during the excitement of the space race, I knew that badges and patches were popular and iconic to my generation. No spacebound adventure seemed complete without this embodiment of the mission's objectives. The maximum amount of coloured threads possible on a patch would be specified to our British supplier to create the iconic graphics. Great care was given to the imagery. Too intricate a design would have not seen the detail reproduced accurately. The end result was possibly one of the most colourful, intricate of patches the suppliers had ever produced. No spaceflight would be complete without spacesuits. Major Tom would wear his period spacesuit for the actual mission. 5 contemporary suits were commissioned to further showcase the creative freedom that Action Man seems to unlock, bringing him right up to date. These 1/6 works of art were not to be spacebound for 2 reasons. 1, due to the inherent risks of the mission, and 2, that a vintage Action Man should have a period suit in an original capsule to make this a truly vintage feat. Leslie Wisdom, an extremely talented and versatile seamstress, created the prototype flight suit much in the same way as the original GIJoe's design team would have, testing sewing techniques and tailoring it at 1/6 scale size. A prototype was made and we came to a decision as to the best way to produce the 5 special costumes. White cotton drill, similar to the material of the original 1966 Action Soldier outfits, was used to create the individually gold-numbered spacesuits. These would be sent to 5 gold backers on different continents. Major Bob Tom, a prized 1966 vintage Action Man from my own personal collection, was chosen to make the mission in his original astronaut set. This wonderfully made silver foil suit was popular from its launch in the UK in 1967. It was subtly modified. The stars and stripes were proudly replaced with the Union Jack. Additional Action Man Space Agency and a simplified version of the mission patches, kindly provided by Mark of Patches of Pride, were also affixed. Major Tom wore his slip-on silver boots to step into the vintage toy capsule. We started to restyle a 1967 Palitoy Action Man space capsule. We named it the Jubilee 7, ending up very close to the US Mercury capsule of the 1960s. It was painted satin black and proudly flew the Union Jack alongside sponsors. The task of filming and tracking the capsule with little visual intrusion was a challenge. Chris made a rectangular frame and camera rig to run test footage to check mission camera angles and exposure. We had at one point 4 capsules in differing livery and stages of modification. Ian Moore generously donated a capsule to the fleet which had decal trials performed on it, and this became the publicity capsule for photography purposes. When we were happy with the final design, it was duplicated onto the actual flight capsule. Finally, a tribute to David Bowie was placed on the side. He was in the recording studio even at the time of Action Man's UK launch. His music mesmerised more than a generation and was a constant soundtrack to our childhoods. The history of Action Man is intrinsically linked to Owen Street in the ex-coal mining town of Coalville in Leicestershire. The Castlite Company was founded after the turn of the century by Alfred Edward Pallett in Coalville. It was subsequently bought by British Milanite in 1941. By 1935, Pallettoy had become its toy division, a fusion of Pallett's surname and the toys it was to produce. It was a major employer in the town, and from an ever-growing factory site, millions of Action Men and accessories were made, assembled, dressed and packed by armies of local hand workers. On this site, the Pallettoy design department brought the flocking process to Action Man, dreamt up and created the novel gripping hands, and developed the ingenious eagle-eyed figures and dynamic physique bodies. During the 60s, 70s and 80s, Action Man would stream out of the factory gates en route to toy shops the length and breadth of Great Britain, bringing joy to countless children. The launch day was rescheduled from the 19th of June to the 26th of June following poor weather forecasts and temperamental high-level winds. This played havoc with the organisation of publicising the event to a larger crowd. On the Sunday of the launch, still a little touch and go weather-wise, Major Tom took the opportunity to have a reconnaissance of Coalville and the football ground, contemplating the gravity of the task ahead. My son Tom and Richard Weston of Western Digital Imaging were on hand to capture additional footage, including this drone footage of the original factory site. On the ground, Chris finally assembled the flight components of the Jubilee 7 capsule, now a much pared down lighter device, to allow a quick ascent and descent through what were less than perfect conditions for June. It contained the necessary tracking equipment and one GoPro camera, together with 100 gold dog tags taped to the capsule boom arm. A small crowd of enthusiasts gathered and kindly offered their support, even chipping in and helping to ready Major Tom for this historic mission. Would he be the first Action Man to go into the stratosphere and near space? Chris got the required Civil Aviation Authority approval for the launch.
Good afternoon, is that air traffic for East Midlands Airport?
Yeah.
Brilliant, my name's Chris Silcox. I called earlier today about the Met balloon launch from Coalville.
Okay.
We're now 30 minutes on from the launch and we should still be doing it at 4:30.
Okay, thank you.
That's great, thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you, bye.
The time for dreaming was over. This was the hour. All the hard planning, endless phone calls, organisation of suppliers, posting publicity, outfitting Major Tom and readying his capsule for flight had come down to this moment. Bob Breakin stood by to use his famous gripping hands to release Action Man on an epic journey few could have even imagined at Action Man's birth.
Okay, so it's one gripping hand, so it's one giant leap for Action Man. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0!
Major Tom rose swiftly into a cloudy sky at about 4:30 in the afternoon and slowly disappeared from sight into the clouds on the flight of his life. On the ground, as Major Tom disappeared from sight, we said goodbye to new friends and quickly packed everything away to track a flight that should last 1.5 hours. Chris, Tom and I made our way down to the M1 but ran into heavy traffic. We both pulled into Watford Gap services and Chris announced that the balloon was already down. Its location was in a small village called Cretan in Northamptonshire, 50 miles from Coalville.
4 minutes to go. He's in open countryside. We're hoping no one's picked him up. It's raining lightly, so that might keep people from wanting to go for a walk in the countryside, so we've got a good chance of getting him back.
The anticipation was immense. We seemed only minutes away from locating our hero, The journey to get off the motorway took us down and away from the landing zone and then across country. We arrived in Cretan and found the hill on which the tracker was still pinging us. Chris, Tom and I got boots on the ground and begun the search. It was odd, no orange shoot, but nevertheless a steady signal. Then I thought Chris had found him.
We have touchdown. How hard was that finding that, Chris, in a word?
Well, oh, hang on a minute, hold that. That's all I found.
Right, where was that?
So we'd just found the tracker, but no Major Tom or GoPro or capsule. We felt someone must have picked it up and went about an unsuccessful door-to-door appeal with the kind villagers until about dusk. We all returned home with a heavy heart. We initiated an immediate appeal to find Major Tom and created a Find Major Tom hashtag. News agencies picked up on the heroic adventure swiftly, and it soon hit the BBC News, the Telegraph, the Mirror and countless local papers. Facebook pages got a reach of 30,000 and Twitter had at least 350,000 impressions. All hope for finding Major Tom were fading fast. But on the 2nd of July, Chris phoned me to tell me that a farmer's sister had Instagrammed a photo of the GoPro. It had been found by her brother in a field between Stratton and Brixworth. It became apparent that we finally had gained the film footage that was key to the mission and key to unlocking the exact fate of Major Tom as he disappeared from our sight and into the unknown. The fate of the capsule bearing the tribute to David Bowie seems to have closely followed the narrative of David Bowie's Space Oddity and of his Major Tom.
So it's one gripping hand, but it's one giant leap for Action Man. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Major Tom had swiftly rose through the cloud base and into the clear stratosphere. Rode through ice showers and he was higher, colder and more isolated than he'd ever been before. High-level stratospheric turbulence and temperatures as low as minus 57 degrees, together with a violent whiplash from the balloon cord, conspired to shatter the Jubilee 7 and jettison Major Tom into near space, 18,000 metres from the ground. In a split second, a catastrophic failure of the capsule plastics saw it explode into tiny shards and stripped the zip-tied-in Major Tom of his space helmet. Parts of the capsule and 10 blocks of 10 gold dog tags can be seen falling peacefully together back towards the clouds. These are the last images of Major Tom. The camera, still connected to the remnants of the bowl-shaped base plate, glided further along the wreckage path and the tracker arm. The balloon carried on up into space together with the landing parachute. Major Tom free fell for almost 12 miles, dressed only in his spacesuit and boots. He would have hit the ground at a terminal velocity of approaching 100 miles an hour, equivalent to a 600 miles per hour scale speed. So where is Major Tom? Major Tom is thought to be currently resting up between Cottersbrook and Cretan in Northamptonshire. His adventure had been spectacular and his attempt a success. So, is Major Bob Tom the first original action man to have fulfilled his original mission, that of an astronaut? His Palitoy capsule, for 42 minutes, flew the Union Jack proudly 60,315 feet or 11.5 miles over the country of his birth from the town of his birth. His 50-year and counting adventure goes on, and we all live in hope that once again he'll make one more set of headlines when he's finally located. We fully expect perhaps at harvest time he'll re-emerge. A true hero's welcome awaits Major Tom, first action man astronaut.